The intention for this video is to describe the relationship between primary and secondary equipment as we define it in Pitram. So the most common example of this is the loaders and trucks. So I've just got my basic loaders and trucks panel up on screen, and we can see that I have truck 2 and truck 3 are assigned to excavator 2. Now the technical term for this relationship is inheritance, but it's a lot easier to think of it as sort of like a parent-child relationship where the excavator effectively feeds information to the trucks so that they don't need to be populated with as much data, because the two are working together and ultimately the truck is receiving its material from the excavator. So we can kind of just infer location or material in that case. So for dump truck 2, we can see, despite the fact that I haven't set this at all, we can see that the material is low grade and the location is pit 2. That might look familiar, and that's because the excavator's location is pit 2 and the material is low grade. So it's always going to pick up, in the case of the truck, it's always going to pick up the location and the material, and even potentially the loader operator, and infer that information down the line through that parent-child relationship. This isn't always limited to trucks and loaders. You can have other setups in terms of primary and secondary equipment where it's relevant, but it's most commonly used by far in the truck loader relationship. So if I just run through a quick cycle here, move my truck around to create a movement. Now, that tonnage effectively is being credited to both the loader and the truck, since they both took part in performing that work. You know, the truck's been loaded by the loader at pit 2, traveled up and then dumped at the ROM. About that, if we jump into Event Editor, we can see that it maps out the primary equipment and also the equipment. So for all of these movements, so for this latest movement, the equipment was dump truck 2. The primary equipment was excavator 2. You may also notice there's no real option for me to change the location. This is because this is a great example. If I wanted to change the location of these movements, say we have pit 2, I would not change the location of the truck, because the truck never had anything to do with the location. It came from the excavator. So changing the location for these movements would be a matter of changing the location as far as the excavator was concerned, and then that of course will flow down through inheritance onto the truck. That's a pretty basic summary. I mean, in terms of a conclusion, it's just a parent-child relationship where that information flows down. If I change this to high grade on my loader, then my trucks will be carrying high grade now. Every truck that runs through this loader will be carrying high grade. The same thing for a change in location. It's a really important concept to grasp when you're dealing with Pitram, particularly when you start diving into reports, but it's not too complicated once you've run through it a few times. Thanks.